I had just sought refuge with my younger brother, who had become a high-ranking official, only to walk in on him drawing his sword to end his own life. I kicked the sword out of his hand on the spot, and slapped him back to his senses, shouting, "Sister's here. I'm about to be forced to marry a rogue. And here you are, trying to die." Since then, I simply stuck to him like glue, ordering him around every single day. I made him massage my shoulders and rub my legs himself. I was finally living the good life, just eating and relaxing, until dense rows of bullet comments floated before my eyes. My entire body froze. I realized this man wasn't my brother at all. He was the notorious living Yama of the court, a cold-blooded killer. And my real brother was actually his arch-rival and romantic competitor. On her deathbed, my mother told me to go to the capital to find my brother. She said he now held a high position and could surely protect me for the rest of my life. I wandered the city for nearly a month. My silver was gone, but I finally tracked him down. By a lake on the outskirts, the withered lotuses hung over the water, looking like a row of broken umbrellas. The man had a tall, upright stature, dressed in a pale green robe. Even though it had been nearly 20 years, I recognized him instantly as his hem swayed in the wind. My little brother had been born with rare purple eyes. People said it brought misfortune and dark omens. But Mother argued it was a sign of great wealth and status. As it turned out, Mother was right. My heart was filled with joy. I rushed forward with a wide grin, ready to reminisce, only to see the man press a sword against his own throat, intent on ending it all. Seeing the pillar I just found about to collapse, I couldn't just let him. I lunged forward and kicked the sword out of his hand. While he was still stunned, I swung my hand and delivered a sharp slap. I was fuming with rage. Mother just passed away from illness, and your sister was almost kidnapped by thugs. Yet here you are, seeking death. The man was struck dumb on the spot, his head snapping to the side. After a long silence, he slowly turned back and asked, "Who are you? How dare he?" I swung my hand for another slap, but he caught my wrist mid-air. His gaze narrowed, and the purple in his pupils deepened. It seemed he was pushed to the absolute brink of fury, as if he might tear me to pieces in an instant. I was momentarily intimidated by his terrifying aura. I flinched for a second, then quickly straightened my back. "You don't even recognize your own sister?" Tears welled in my eyes. I cried out his birth name, Li Dafeng. He froze. The anger on his face momentarily vanished into shock. I pulled Mother's spirit tablet from my bundle and shoved it against his chest. "Even if you don't remember me, you shouldn't forget our own mother." The man stared at the name carved on the tablet. His eyes flickered as he muttered to himself. "Could you really be? What are you dazing for? Kneel down before Mother, now." I irritably gave him a hard kick to the backside. His entire body jolted. He glared at me, filled with humiliation and annoyance. "You dare." I slapped him right on the forehead. "Now that you're a high official, you won't even acknowledge your own mother?" His chest heaved violently several times, as if he was about to explode with rage, but he suppressed it. He locked eyes with me, his expression unreadable, until a strange smirk crept onto the corner of his mouth. Then, through gritted teeth, he fell to his knees directly in front of Mother's tablet. His knees hit the ground with a heavy thud. Looking at his face, he still seemed reluctant. He truly deserved that beating. My brother said he had changed his name to Chu Jing. When he was 6, our hometown suffered a drought, followed by a famine. Mother knocked out our father, who tried to sell a child for food, and led us both on a flight to the south. A noblewoman had recently lost her beloved son. Seeing that my brother and her lost child looked very much alike, she decided to take him in. Mother figured that if he stayed with the wealthy, it was better than starving and freezing with us. So she let go of him with tears in her eyes. Life is cruel. We slowly lost contact over the years. He inherited noble favor and entered a grand household in Jiaqing. Changing his name was only natural. Chu Jing sheathed his sword and led me back to his current residence. This mansion was so grand that I froze at the entrance, afraid to step inside. The studs on the vermilion gates were thicker than my fist. 2 stone lions stood guard on either side. Above the gate hung a plaque, engraved with 4 large, golden characters. It took me a long time to realize it said Prince of Jinbei's mansion. My little brother is now the Prince of Jinbei, holding the rank of Grand Marshal, commanding an army of 200,000 in the north. He is a top-tier luminary in the imperial court. A stomp of his foot would make all of the capital tremble. I solemnly patted his shoulder. "Brat, you've really made something of yourself." Chu Jing's cheek twitched slightly. To cure him of his lovesick melancholy, I chose a room in his courtyard very close to his own. The new servants moved all my luggage over. Chu Jing's expression was very grim. "I don't like living so close to others." I raised my hand and slapped him on the head. "If I don't keep an eye on you, what if you try to end it all again? Then what?" Chu Jing was stunned by the hit. Staring at me, speechless. The servants in the mansion were all holding their breath. Heads bowed low. Pretending they hadn't seen a thing. I noticed a few maids. With their mouths hanging open wide enough to fit a peach. There was even a younger boy whose knees were trembling. Finally, Chu Jing closed his eyes and sighed. Surrendering to fate. This is the power of bloodline authority. No matter how high and mighty you become, a younger brother is always a younger brother. I wandered through every corner of the magnificent mansion. Everything was dazzling. And I realized how obsessed Chu Jing was with that woman. Sketches of her were everywhere in the pavilion. Page after page, scattered all over. Hanging on the walls. Pressed onto the desks. The girl in the paintings had skin as white as snow. And was as beautiful as a flower. She truly was quite lovely. She stood at a snowy alleyway entrance. Wearing a bright red cloak. Holding a box of pastries in her hand. Smiling softly at someone. Every painting was of the same person. An attendant whispered to me that when the master was young, he once collapsed in the streets. Cold and starving. It was Miss Sue who gave him a box of food that saved his life. But that Miss Sue had long since been betrothed. Since she's married, what's the point in pining? If the woman were single, I could find a way to play matchmaker for them. But the ship had sailed. For all we know, she might have a child by now. What is there to miss? I dragged Chu Jing out and told him to paint me. Chu Jing looked displeased. If you want a portrait, I'll hire a professional painter. I twisted his ear. You can paint other girls. But not your own sister? He looked very aggrieved. I made him swear he would only paint me. I glared at him with a menacing look. He let out a long sigh. Resentfully spreading out the white paper. He picked up the brush. I struck a very bold pose in the armchair. His brush moved with incredible speed. Every now and then, I tried to lean in to see. But he always frowned and shooed me away. Telling me not to move until it was finished. I was quite satisfied. You've captured most of my charm, I suppose. Pay attention in the future. Don't make my face look too bloated. His face twitched again. I ordered the paintings of Su Qinglin to be taken down. And replaced them with mine. Chu Jing and I stood chest to chest. I shot him a sideways glance, and he backed down. From today on, you must paint one portrait of your sister every day. I pointed around at the room full of old paintings. Until the whole house is filled with portraits of me. Qin Feng was hiding nearby, grinning like a madman. Chu Jing gave him a cold glare. At dawn, Chu Jing was practicing his swordplay. The blade shimmered, and his robes fluttered in the wind. He wore a pure white robe, with his slender waist tightly bound. His moves were fierce and sharp, yet his movements were incredibly graceful. The blade sliced through the air, creating a whistling sound. He moved like a white crane dancing in the sunlight. I stood to the side, clapping loudly. To think early family produced a talent like you. I'm truly so proud. He suddenly stopped mid-swing. With a dark expression, Chu Jing sheathed his sword and left. My brother is so shy. I thought to myself. We hadn't seen each other for so many years, so a little awkwardness was inevitable. It would get better after a few more days. I was in the courtyard reading a novel. And snacking on melon seeds. Qin Feng gave me the book. Saying it was the most popular one in the capital. A romance story between a man and a woman. I found it quite dull and felt sleepy. The melon seeds were freshly roasted and 5-spice flavored. Very crispy and delicious. I left a pile of shells on the ground. I tilted my chin toward the table. Little brat, go on. Brew me a pot of hot tea. Chu Jing was standing nearby. But he didn't budge an inch. I looked up at him, puzzled. Why are you just standing there? Are you trying to let me die of thirst? With an expression of great restraint, Chu Jing took the teapot and left. I had been sitting for too long and felt stiff. I stood up to stretch. Brat, come over and give me a massage. My shoulders have been stiff these past 2 days. Chu Jing's face darkened. His hand instinctively rose. But then he held himself back. It seemed he was determined not to listen to me. I lowered my voice and threatened him. I'm counting to 3. If you don't come over, there will be consequences. 1, 2. As if he had been given an order. He walked over involuntarily and started massaging my back. When he realized what he was doing. Even he seemed to find it unbelievable. I was very satisfied. This trick always worked. Without fail. He had grown into a man now. And his strength was much greater. As his long fingers pressed into my shoulders. The pressure was just right. I felt completely relaxed. I reached back and patted his head. His hair was very soft. Just like when he was a child. Good boy. I'll make you lotus root meatballs tonight. The servants in the courtyard exchanged looks. Heads buried low. Fearing they might burst out laughing. After living with Chu Jing for a while, I realized how much he was self-destructing. His health was already failing. Yet he drank all day long. When I got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, I always saw the light on in his study. His lonely silhouette was cast against the window, holding a wine flask. On the 5th day after I moved in, I had all that wine moved into my room. He stood at the entrance of the storehouse, watching the jars of wine being carried away. His face was so dark it looked like it would drip with ink. I frowned. I walked over and poked his stomach. It was rock hard. His muscles were very defined, like a washboard. When your health is better, you can drink as much as you want. You're sturdy enough. Just a bit too thin. I pinched his waist. He was indeed lean. I could feel his ribs. His entire body froze. I ignored it, and continued nagging, "Your appetite is too poor. I'll cook something for you. Something you used to love." I blinked at him. The reason my brother listened to me so much when we were little was all thanks to my superior cooking skills. Our parents were simple people, who just threw together whatever for meals. It was up to me to find ways to make delicious food. That's why my brother was so loyal to me. I went into the kitchen and rolled up my sleeves to knead dough. Chu-Jing was exceptionally well behaved today, sitting in the courtyard quietly watching the sunset. I carried that bowl of fragrant, appetizing dough drop soup out to him. The dough drops were white and clean, and the soup was speckled with scallions and egg ribbons. It looked mouth-watering. I heard Qin Feng gulp. Chu-Jing sat at the table, staring at the bowl of soup without moving. "Quick, taste it." I thrust a spoon into his hand. He took it and put a mouthful into his mouth. He suddenly stopped chewing. "How does it taste? Is it the same as before?" My eyes were full of expectation. "When you were little, you'd beg for this soup. Willing to be my servant for 3 days just to have a bowl. Doing laundry and cutting grass. You were so busy for such a young age. And you even had to pour tea for me." I watched Chu-Jing chew slowly, his gaze becoming deep and complex. After a long while, he looked up at me. "It's all right." I assumed he was just being shy. After all, he was an adult now. He couldn't be as greedy for food as he was as a child. "As long as you listen to your sister, I'll make it for you every day." I made the promise with a smile. Chu-Jing stared down at the soup in his bowl, and softly replied, "Mm." That night, I was half asleep, and went to the kitchen for a snack. Passing the study, I happened to hear Qin Feng speaking. Master lost his kin at a young age. He never even met his biological parents. Where could an older sister have come from? I yawned, instinctively leaning closer to hear better. There was a period of silence. Then Chu-Jing's voice came through, void of any emotion. "I have my own plans." "Plans? What plans?" Seeing how skilled Chu-Jing was, I pestered him to teach me some self-defense skills. He gave me a look but didn't say anything, then took me to the courtyard to teach me the horse stance. The sun was blindingly bright. As I stood there, my legs began to ache intensely. He watched me with a stern, serious face. "Spread your legs wider. Keep your back straight. Raise your arms higher. Don't wobble." I seriously suspected he was messing with me on purpose. I couldn't even last 15 minutes before I collapsed. My legs gave out and I sat on the ground. I stood up, feeling hot, and rolled my sleeves up to my shoulders. "I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. You'll protect me from now on anyway. I doubt anyone would dare bully me." "Ha ha ha." Just as I said that, he suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. I had a scar on my arm. It was about the size of a mouth, clearly visible there. It had been there for many years. Chu-Jing said softly, "This looks like a wild animal bite." As his thumb brushed over the scar, I laughed. "Have you forgotten? The reason you were so obedient as a kid was because I saved your life from a wolf's jaws. We were only 7 or 8 years old back then. Being greedy for food, we went up the mountain to pick bamboo shoots. There were wolves in the deep mountains in spring. We didn't notice, because we were too focused on picking. When we looked up, a wolf was only a few meters away. Its green eyes were fixed on me. I grabbed him and ran, but we couldn't outrun it. The hungry wolf lunged at his head. I pushed him aside and used my arm to block the bite. The pain was so intense I nearly stopped breathing. Blood stained half my arm red, and the flesh was torn open. My brother was terrified and wouldn't stop crying, but I held him tight and kicked the wolf away. Later, the village hunters arrived and killed the wolf. From that day on, he obeyed my every word, with unwavering loyalty. After hearing this story, Chu-Jing gazed at me deeply. In those purple eyes, a flicker of complex emotion passed. I actually detected a hint of longing and yearning. Just as I was about to ask him what was wrong, he let go of my hand and looked away. "The moonlight is truly beautiful tonight." I was walking back after sneaking a late-night snack when I passed the garden. I couldn't help but stop. The cold moonlight shone on Chu-Jing, who was in red robes, standing barefoot on a rock. He was very tall, and his skin looked terrifyingly pale against the vibrant red. He was holding a long sword, staring in my direction. The purple in his eyes was so deep it looked black. It was a chilling sight. Qin Feng appeared behind me at some point, and whispered, "The Grand Marshal's condition is acting up again. Miss, don't go near him. Someone once disturbed the master at a time like this." And he ran them through the chest with his sword. Chu Jing's sword emanated a cold aura. But the autumn wind was so chilly. He was already in poor health, coughing all day. And now he was barefoot, ignoring Qin Feng's warning. I walked quickly toward him. As he saw me approach, the purple intent in his eyes grew even stronger, as if it were about to swallow me whole. The hand holding the sword hung at his side, his fingers trembling slightly. Strangely, I didn't feel afraid. We grew up together. We shared the same blood. He was my closest kin. I didn't believe he would hurt me. Step by step, I walked up to Chu Jing, and threw my arms around him in a hug. His body was freezing. He froze completely. "Brat, wake up. I'm your sister." He didn't move. "You better not stab me with that sword." I pressed my face against his chest, and said in a muffled voice, "Otherwise, you'll surely regret it for the rest of your life when you wake up. And our parents in the afterlife won't forgive you either. Understand?" He still didn't move. As I held him, I felt his heart racing. It pounded against my ear through the thin fabric. "It's too cold out here. And you aren't even wearing shoes." I let go of him, and looked down at his bare feet. They were deathly pale from the cold. "If you get sick later, you'll have to drink bitter medicine." I took his hand. It was ice cold, with distinct knuckles, showing a bit of redness at the joints. "Will you go back inside with sister?" I gripped his hand tightly. "I'll stay with you while you sleep. I'll sing for you, okay?" Chu Jing looked down at me. The bottomless coldness in his eyes slowly dissipated, replaced by a glimmer of light. He raised his hand, and gently touched my face. His fingertips were slightly cool, and his movement was as light as a feather. Then he rested his forehead on my shoulder, as if all the strength had left his body. He leaned against me softly, seemingly having fallen asleep. I quickly called Qin Feng to help me get him back to his room. Looking at Chu Jing sleeping soundly on the bed, I breathed a sigh of relief. But I didn't dare leave. So I stayed by his bedside, dozing off. I didn't notice the man on the bed slowly open his eyes and watch me silently. The days continued to pass peacefully. Now he wouldn't allow me to leave the mansion. He said he had many enemies now, and there was no guarantee no one would use my identity to threaten him or cause chaos. The capital is not like our countryside after all. The situation is very messy. Just stay in the mansion and be at ease. He told me that if I needed anything, I should just have someone buy it. I nodded and agreed. Anyway, I was never one for wandering around. The mansion had everything I could ever need. I didn't have to worry about food or clothes, and I even had servants to wait on me. It was much better than life in the village. But after staying for a while, I started to feel suffocated. Chu Jing thought for a moment, and decided to accompany me to the outskirts for a picnic and fishing. He seemed very nervous, following me like a shadow, seeing me dance with joy after catching a big fish. A trace of a smile finally touched his lips. On the way back, as we sat in the carriage, Chu Jing pressed down on my hand as I tried to lift the curtain. His expression was somewhat strange. Suddenly, there was a sharp whistle, and a sharp arrow pierced through the air, tearing through the curtain, flying straight toward him. My mind went blank. Before my conscious mind could react, my body had already lunged forward to shield him. "Oh, heavens!" I wailed inwardly in despair. I haven't had enough of these good days yet. Suddenly, a massive force pulled me away. In a dizzying blur, I was flung to the other side of the carriage. With a thud, I opened my eyes. A patch of crimson spread across his arm, and blood flowed down toward his hand. Qin Feng poked his head into the carriage, asking anxiously, "Are you all right?" There was only one. "Men have already been sent to pursue him." Chu Jing nodded, but his gaze remained fixed intently on me. His lips moved, but no sound came out. This silly boy had pushed me away at the critical moment. Fortunately, only his arm was injured. It took a long time before he finally spoke. I hurriedly checked his injury, urging the driver to speed up. Chu Jing pursed his lips, and didn't press the matter further. After that day, Chu Jing became much more attentive toward me. There was no longer any of the previous reluctance. The moment I sat down, tea would be handed to me. If I leaned back, his hand would be there to support me. If I yawned, he would proactively hand me a novel, and bring a plate of sour dates to refresh me. His shoulder and leg massages became increasingly skilled, taking care of me with great ease. I was very satisfied with his transformation. One day, while he was helping me massage my legs, several lines of bullet comments suddenly flashed before my eyes. The female supporting character has recognized the wrong person. This is the ruthless big villain who kills without blinking. Thousands have died by his hand at the very least. There was once a woman who pretended to be from his village to get close. And he had her executed as a spy without a second thought. He has absolutely no concept of tenderness. The villain is famous for seeking vengeance for the slightest grievance. If you harm a single hair on his head, he'll wipe out your entire family. He'd split an earthworm vertically. And even scramble an egg yolk just out of spite. The supporting character actually dares to let him massage her legs. No amount of heads would be enough for him to chop off. The most important thing is, her actual brother is the sweetheart of the female lead, Su Qinglin. The female lead is married to her real brother. My whole body froze. I looked down and met the man's deep gaze. He looked completely docile. What's wrong, sister? Is my strength too light? Does villain mean a really bad guy? I stared blankly at Chu Jing. My mind buzzing. Was the text I just saw real? The person in front of me isn't Li Dabong? He's not my real brother? Seeing that I didn't speak for a long time, Chu Jing looked puzzled. Sister? I swallowed hard. And spoke tentatively. Little Bang. Do you still remember Su Yunyun from our village? His hand paused slightly. The one with big eyes. A round face, 2 little pigtails. And dimples when she smiles? You were so fond of her when you were little. If you went to see her looking like this now, she would definitely like you very much. Chu Jing was silent for a few seconds. Then gave a faint smile. A childhood joke. Shouldn't be taken seriously. I nodded, looking calm on the outside. But inside, I felt a bone-deep chill. Heavens, there was no Su Yunyun at all. My brother was like a monkey when he was little. Chasing chickens and teasing dogs all day, having absolutely no interest in girls. Chu Jing really was a big liar. My heart was filled with despair. Chu Jing must hate my brother so much. The reason he kept me by his side must be to use me to get revenge on him. Li Dabong is in danger. After seeing the truth, I no longer dared to let Chu Jing massage my legs or shoulders. I didn't dare let him pour tea for me anymore. Or order him around. Whenever he approached, I would find an excuse to slip away. When he spoke, I would lower my head and ignore him. When he poured tea, I said I didn't need it. When he tried to massage my shoulders, I dodged. When he asked me what I wanted to eat, I said whatever. After this happened many times, his face darkened, and his tone actually sounded a bit aggrieved. Did I do something wrong to upset sister? I shook my head, not daring to say a word. Chu Jing reached out, wanting to touch my face. And I froze completely, like a startled hedgehog. With all my quills standing up, Chu Jing's breath hitched, and his raised hand slowly dropped, looking rather forlorn. For some reason, my heart also felt a bit uneasy. The sky was pitch black. I secretly shouldered the bundle I had packed early on, planning to climb the wall and flee for my life under the cover of night. The moon tonight was huge, and exceptionally bright. I quietly slipped to the base of the back courtyard wall, threw the bundle up, and began climbing up by stepping in the gaps between the bricks. Just as I reached the top of the wall, a deep voice suddenly came from below. Sister, where do you think you're going? I looked down, and was nearly scared to death. It was Chu Jing. The moonlight stretched his shadow extremely long. Standing there, he looked like a god of slaughter. Sister. He picked something up from the ground. You dropped something. I looked closer, and it was actually a bright red silk undergarment with embroidered mandarin ducks. I must have been too panicked earlier, and it had fallen out of my bundle. Chu Jing hooked the undergarment with his fingertip. Under the moonlight, he examined it closely. The flash of vivid red against his jade-like skin actually looked somewhat erotic. My face turned beet red, and I wished I could find a hole to crawl into. Give it back to me. Sister hasn't answered me yet. Chu Jing's eyes were dark. In the middle of the night, what is sister doing here? I made up a random excuse. I was hungry and wanted to go out to find something to eat. I knew in my heart that not even a ghost would believe that. Chu Jing didn't say a word. The lantern light flickered on his face, making his expression hard to read. After a long time, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. All right. He tucked the silk piece into his sleeve and reached out to me. Come down. I didn't budge. He sighed, leaped up, and landed lightly beside me. The top of the wall was very narrow, with 2 people squeezed together. I almost fell off. He reached out and grabbed my waist, pulling me closer into his embrace. I'll carry you down. He looked down at me, his breath brushing against my ear. Warm and soft. My whole body was stiff, not daring to move an inch. Chu Jing brought me down, then led me to the small kitchen. The chef stayed up to make me 4 dishes and a soup. I forced myself to eat it all, nearly stuffing myself to death. Chu Jing sat aside, watching me. When he suddenly asked, Does sister feel unhappy living in the mansion? I nodded, then quickly shook my head. How would I dare? This time, Chu Jing remained silent and didn't speak again. After that day, he stopped trying to get close to me. He no longer waited at my door in the morning for me to wake up. He stopped hovering around me all day. He stopped constantly asking why I was being cold to him. When I sat in the courtyard reading a novel, he would just stand far away under the corridor, watching for a while. Before leaving quietly, Qin Feng came running to tell me, saying the Grand Marshal had been dazed lately. He wouldn't sleep at night, but just sat in the study staring at the walls full of paintings. Are those portraits of Miss Su? They are portraits of you. Paintings from this period are everywhere. I went to the study. The walls were covered with paintings of my face. Cracking sunflower seeds, yawning, staring with wide eyes. Every single one was vivid. The way I laughed until wrinkles showed was captured perfectly. Even the tiny mole on the bridge of my nose wasn't missed. He sat among those portraits, with his back to the door, completely motionless. I didn't enter the room. I didn't know how to face him. A few days later, Chu Jing wanted to take me out. It was the first time since winter began that he allowed me to leave. The plum blossoms at Qixia Temple outside the city have bloomed. I'll take you to see them. The carriage swayed as it left the city. Chu Jing and I sat inside, not saying a word the whole time. Qixia Temple was built on a mountain, requiring a climb up a long flight of stone stairs. I was exhausted halfway up. I squatted by the roadside, gasping for air. Chu Jing stood beside me, hesitating to speak. What's wrong? Nothing. The plum blossoms at the top really were beautiful. Red and white. Layer upon layer. A cold fragrance drifted across the entire mountainside. The incense at the temple was very popular, with many people coming and going. I followed the crowd inside. Suddenly, I heard people ahead discussing something. Isn't that Lord Song? Which one? Song Yuzhu? Song Yuzhu is a very high-ranking official. I heard he was born with purple eyes, just like the most beautiful emperor in history. That's why he is so favored by the emperor. I heard he married the Grand Preceptor's daughter. Indeed, the wedding was just the other day. The scene was... My footsteps stopped. Purple eyes? There are actually 2 pairs of purple eyes in this world? I pushed through the crowd and ran forward. A group of people stood in the main hall. The one in the center wore a green robe. His head tilted as he chatted with someone beside him. Sunlight shone on his face. And those eyes were exactly the same as in my memory. His face was thinner than when I left, with sharp, defined features. My brother. That really is my brother. My legs moved involuntarily, rushing toward them. Little bang. Excuse me, officer. I have urgent business with Lord Song Yanju up there. Please let me through. The noble ladies who were worshipping Buddha all turned their heads to look. Song Yuzhu also took a casual glance, and then his gaze froze. He stared intently at me, the smile on his face fading bit by bit, as if afraid he was seeing things. He scanned me over and over. I saw his lips trembling. Sister. His voice was incredibly hoarse. I nodded frantically, tears already streaming down my face. He pushed aside the people blocking his way, and came stumbling toward me. Then he pulled me into a tight embrace. Sister! Sister! He cried out loud. You're alive. You're still alive. I thought you were dead. I sent people back to look for you all, and they said a plague had hit the village. They said you and Mother were both gone. Mother is gone. Before she passed, she told me to come to the capital to find you. Hearing the news of her death, my brother cried even harder. Not far away, someone watched quietly. It was Chu Jing. He stood under an old plum tree. I didn't know how long he had been staring. A few petals having fallen on his shoulders, his gaze fell upon my brother. A certain emotion flashing in his eyes. Coming to burn incense with my brother was also his wife, Su Qinglin. I knew how infatuated Chu Jing used to be with her. I was well aware of that. I thought that seeing her this time, he would surely be in a state of turmoil. But when he actually saw Miss Su, he merely gave a calm, indifferent nod. The 4 of us found a courtyard in the temple to sit down. My brother still wouldn't let go of me, sobbing uncontrollably. It took a long time of gentle persuasion from Su Qinglin and me, before he finally stopped. I also felt like my throat was parched, so I looked around for water. Out of habit, I grabbed the teapot, intending to pour myself some water. At the same time, my brother saw my lips were dry and peeling, and immediately turned to call out, "Someone, bring tea for my sister." As he turned his head, he saw Chu Jing already holding the teapot and pouring water into a cup. Both of them froze. I had been climbing the mountain for so long that my legs were incredibly sore. Combined with the heavy emotional toll, my whole body felt weak. I instinctively leaned to the side. Chu Jing almost subconsciously squatted down, reaching out his hand to massage my leg. My brother also instinctively bent down, reaching out to try and steady me. Two people reached out at the same time. And then froze at the same time. I was stunned for a moment. Only then realizing what I had just done. I had actually, quite naturally, extended my leg toward Chujing. My brother looked at Chujing, then at me. His eyes rounding in shock. What did you do to my sister? Song Yuju was full of defensiveness. Chujing ignored him and looked up at me. I stared back at him. It was so awkward. In a few words, I gave a brief explanation of what had happened recently. I left out the part about Chujing, pretending to be my brother to trick me. I only said he had taken me in because he saw I was pitiful. Song Yuju was suspicious after hearing this. He didn't believe Chujing would be so kind. But seeing that my limbs were all intact, and that I had been well fed and healthy, it was clear I had been living well, so he couldn't say much. He gave a deep, formal bow. I will surely bring gifts to your door to thank you another day. Chujing didn't say a word. He just stared at me, the light in his eyes having dimmed considerably. I followed my brother back to his official residence. The Song mansion was slightly smaller than the prince's mansion, but it was still quite spacious. A large 3-entry courtyard, with blue bricks and gray tiles. Cages hung under the corridor, with 2 birds inside. Song Yuju clung to me incessantly. He had to sit next to me at meals, and leaned close to my ear when speaking. He followed every step I took, like a big dog, completely unafraid of being a joke to his wife. Sister, how did you live all these years? Sister, how did you find your way to the capital? Sister, that fellow Chujing has deep schemes. And a terrible reputation. Stay away from him in the future. I think he's quite good. Not at all like the rumors say. Humph, sister. Your judgment is way off. My brother felt sorry for the hardships I had suffered. So he took very thorough care of me, pouring tea and massaging my legs, but he was clumsy. He'd spill tea all over the table. And his shoulder massages made me cry out in pain. I could only roll my eyes in frustration. I rubbed my shoulders. You weren't like this when you were little. You've gotten worse as you've gotten older. He chuckled. I don't practice this. I practice writing essays. What official post do you hold now? Vice Censor-in-Chief. I specialize in keeping an eye on officials. I report anyone who does something bad. What about Chujing? His expression changed slightly. After a long silence, he finally spoke. He has too much power, which has drawn the emperor's suspicion. The emperor wants to seize his military power. He is a prince in name now, but he no longer has troops. I froze in place. Then, what will he do? Song Yuju glanced at me. Sister, why do you care about his business? He has countless enemies in the court. He's offended too many people over the years. Now that he's lost power, plenty of people want his life. I believed that. I suddenly thought of the assassination attempt in the outskirts. It turned out that wasn't the first time. Those strange words popped up again. The villain is a conservative on the surface, but he's actually pushing for reforms in secret. He wants to establish schools for girls, supporting women to work outside the home, to do business, and to participate in politics. The villain gave up his military power voluntarily. Before the old Empress Dowager died, he promised that once the new emperor was secure on the throne, he would hand over power and return north to retire. The villain has a death wish, because the Empress Dowager left a secret letter. She feared his ambition, and hoped the emperor would make him commit suicide after ascending. The villain has had no parents since he was small. The Empress Dowager saved him, and even cared for him for a while when he was seriously injured. In his heart, the Empress Dowager's image is a blur. She was both his master and like a mother. Everyone wants him dead, including the benefactor he treated as a mother. I stared at the words flashing before me, my heart feeling as if it were being violently squeezed. The Empress Dowager wants him dead. Everyone wants him dead. His suicide attempt with the sword that day wasn't for love at all. He truly had lived enough. A few days later, I heard that Chujing was very ill. Qin Feng came to tell me. He stood at the Song family's gate, not entering the house, just having a servant pass on the word that the marshal was bedridden. He wanted to drink a bowl of dough drop soup. I froze in place. Dough drop soup, the kind you make yourself, the servant said. Qin Feng said the marshal has been longing for that flavor, and hasn't eaten for days. Song Yuju heard it from the side, and immediately flew into a rage. In his dreams, why should my sister cook for him? Let him rot. I grabbed him, not letting him say any more nonsense. I sat in the room for a long time. The sky outside was gloomy, looking as if it were about to snow. They all say Chujing's character is cruel, that he's a mass murderer. But during our time together, I only saw his loneliness. That kind of loneliness I knew all too well. After my mother died, I came to the capital alone, with no one to rely on. I ran out of money, And as I squatted by the road chewing on a dry pancake, the exact same emotion had welled up in my heart. He is even more miserable than I was. At least I had a brother. Something to hold on to. But he has nothing. I went to the kitchen and cooked a bowl of dough drop soup. The dough bits were rubbed fine and even, in a broth made from chicken soup, sprinkled with green onions and egg drop. I put it in a stone box and carried it out the gate. Song Yuju blocked me at the door. Sister, do you really plan to go? I slowly nodded my head. Song Yuju couldn't win against me. I had no choice but to agree. Then I'll go with you. The Prince of Jinbei's estate was still the same. It was a grand residence, but it felt very empty. Qin Feng led me inside. He stopped at the door. It's inconvenient for Lord Song to enter. Please wait outside. Song Yuju glared at him. But in the end, he didn't say anything. He stood there obediently, his eyes fixed intently on my back. I pushed the door open and saw Chu Jing. A charcoal brazier was lit in the room, making it warm and cozy. He was covered with a thick quilt, but his face was terrifyingly pale. Those dark purple eyes were sunken in their sockets, looking even deeper than before. When he saw me enter, they lit up slightly. He slowly sat up, his voice raspy, like sandpaper grinding against his throat. I placed the stone box on the bedside table, lifted the lid, and took out the bowl of dough drop soup. Eat it while it's hot. He reached out to take it, but his hand was shaking violently. The soup almost spilled as soon as the bowl touched his fingers. I couldn't bear to watch, so I took the bowl back, scooped up a spoonful, blew on it, and held it to his lips. Open your mouth. He obediently opened it, and swallowed the spoonful of soup. I fed him spoonful after spoonful, and he ate it bite after bite, his eyes fixed on me without blinking, as if afraid I would run away. He drank every last drop of the soup. I put the bowl back into the stone box. I frowned. Is sister worried about me? He smiled, though it was a bit bitter. I thought that since sister found her real brother, you wouldn't care for me anymore. I opened my mouth, not knowing what to say. I really envy Song Yuju. His voice was low. I even feel a bit jealous of him. I asked, is it because of Su Qinglin? He raised his eyelids to look at me. He said, it's because of you. I froze. If I had never had you, it would be fine. He coughed a few times, his face becoming even paler. But why let me taste it? Only to have you leave so soon? I originally didn't plan to go on living. He reached out and unbuttoned his collar. I instinctively wanted to pull back, but he grabbed my wrist and pressed it against his heart. There was a very long scar there, stretching from his collarbone to his chest. The marks of the torn flesh were still there, lurking there hideously, like a large centipede. The edges of the scar were white. It was an old wound, but it was still terrifying to look at. Sister saved me from the brink of death. He pulled my hand further down. There was an arrow wound near his ribs, and another blade wound on his waist, which was very long, slashing diagonally across, nearly taking his life. What a gloomy puppy. He's too good at flirting. Oh my god, I'm hooked. I'm actually starting to pity the villain, sob sob sob. Although the villain played tricks, his pain and internal conflict are real. During the time the supporting actress lived in the estate, the villain felt someone truly care for and love him for the first time. Slowly, that defense of his collapsed. When the villain was targeted by an assassin, the supporting actress even blocked an arrow for him regardless of her own life, completely filling the villain's heart. The supporting actress is in trouble now. He's going to love you to death for the rest of his life. The comments flashed before my eyes, line after line. Perhaps because I had stayed inside for too long, Song Yuju became a bit worried. He knocked on the door from outside. Are you all right? I snapped out of it, and suddenly pulled my hand back. Take good care of yourself. I turned around, and ran out as if fleeing for my life. Only when I got outside did I realize I was shivering. The weather was getting colder and colder. A heavy snow fell on the winter solstice. It snowed for a day and a night, accumulating half a foot deep. The bamboo stalks in the backyard were all bent under the weight. When the wind blew, white snow fell in flurries. Qin Feng came by again, saying the marshal had recovered from his illness, but he was still listless and didn't like to talk. He just stayed in the study looking at a portrait. As for whose portrait it was, I didn't even have to guess. A few days later, my brother said he wanted to arrange a marriage for me. Sister, you aren't getting any younger. He slapped a stack of portraits down in front of me. How about picking a man to serve you? I glared at him. He chuckled, and spread the portraits out one by one. These are all hand-picked by me. Their backgrounds and characters are impeccable, and they are all handsome. I looked down to browse through them. There were officials, soldiers, and sons from noble families. Each of them had well-defined features, clean-cut and fair. As I flipped through them, I suddenly came across a pair of dark purple eyes. An icy face? And thin lips slightly pursed. Chu Jing. How did he sneak in here? My brother leaned in for a look. And his face turned green. Who stuffed this in? He grabbed the portrait. And tore it into shreds in a few quick strokes. The nerve of him, thinking he can marry my sister. I rubbed my temples. The fragments were thrown into the brazier. The flames leaped up. And that face twisted in the firelight. Bit by bit turning into ashes. I watched the embers. My heart feeling an indescribable sensation. A few days later, I told my brother I wanted to meet those men. Blind marriages won't do. I have to meet them at least once. To see what they really look like. My brother was quite happy. And immediately arranged a meeting place at a restaurant. I heard it was the most famous one in the capital. Called Zuishian Restaurant. The food was good and the private rooms were elegant. From the window, one could see the entire street scene. Perfect for a matchmaking session. I went and pushed open the door of the private room. A person was sitting inside. A figure in green. Slender back. He was sitting by the window. Outside was the vast white snow. Inside was a cup of hot tea. The steam curled up, blurring his face. Hearing the movement, he turned his head. It was actually Chu Jing. I was dumbstruck. How can it be you? He stood up. His eyes fixed on me. What's so good about that man? His voice was low. Did sister come here specifically to see him? I have to get married eventually. Since I must marry. He walked over and stood before me. He was much taller than me. I had to look up to see his face clearly. Then marry me. The snow outside was falling heavily. Flake after flake silently drifting. The room was very quiet. Save for the occasional crackle of the charcoal in the brazier. I stared at him blankly. Unable to squeeze out a single word for a long time. He didn't rush me. Just stood there. Looking down at me. Don't you like Su Qinglin? His eyelashes fluttered. Sister, it's better if you know. I'm like someone who's gone mad. I feel as if your shadow is everywhere in the estate. The courtyard where you used to stay. The wooden chair you often sat in. The teacup you loved to use. The bed where you slept. I tried many ways to chase that shadow from my mind, but it only made it clearer. I changed a dozen chefs, but none could recreate the flavor of your soup. Before, when I thought of Su Qinglin, what often came to mind was only a silhouette in the snow. He curled his lips in self-deprecation. I thought of her, but when she actually stood before me, she felt like a stranger. But sister is flesh and blood. Your every move carries a real tenderness, visible and tangible. You hit me, scold me, worry about me, and look me in the eye. You would block an arrow for me, and cook noodles for me too. Such a wonderful sister. It's a pity I stole her away. His gaze darkened. He coaxed me cautiously, but he also understood that what is fake. That day when you suddenly started avoiding me, I knew in my heart that you already knew everything. I was afraid you would leave, but I didn't dare make you stay. I went to the temple to draw a lot, to ask the abbot what I should do. The abbot said, when the heart is moved, taking it as one's own is greed, suffering what they suffer, worrying what they worry, is letting go. That's why I let you meet him. So that reunion at Jixia was arranged by him. But in the end, I'm still just a human. He moved a step forward, getting very close to me. I could smell the faint scent of wood on him. So I've come to ask you one thing. Are you willing to be with me? I raised my head to gaze at him. His eyes were deep, and in them was only my reflection. This is so shipworthy. Before, when I said the supporting actress and the villain were a match, you guys said I was dreaming. Now everyone is allowed to dive into the ship. You can tell from their words. The supporting actress is vibrant and colorful, while the female lead is forever just a silhouette in the snow. Who would have thought that in the end, he'd pick up a treasure? Fake intentions becoming true feelings. That's the perfect match. Those strange characters were discussing excitedly, leaving me completely confused. I almost forgot to answer. Chu Jing waited. His jaw was tight as he pursed his lips. If I refused, I'd feel a bit bad for him. If I agreed, I still needed more time to think. I looked down, anxiously kneading my handkerchief. His eyes darkened for a moment, but then they softened into a curve. He said, all right. I waited for Chu Jing to come to the Song house to propose. The first time, he brought 36 boxes of gifts, lining up from the prince's estate all the way to the Song house gate, attracting half of the capital to come watch the commotion. Song Yuzhu stood at the door, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. He ordered the main gate to be locked, and wouldn't accept a single item. Chu Jing wasn't angry either. He stood outside for half an hour, before taking the betrothal gifts back. The second time, he came again. This time it was 48 boxes. Even more than the last time. Song Yuzhu locked the door as usual. and refused to accept them as usual. The third time, 66 boxes. The fourth time, 88 boxes. The Song family still wouldn't accept. He just waited outside the gate, standing there against the wind and snow. As time went on, his body was covered with white snow. His face turned blue with cold, and his lips lost all color. I peered out through the gap in the door, feeling uneasy. I tugged on my brother's sleeve. Why not accept the gifts and let him go back? You know he's in poor health. You actually feel sorry for him? He looked at me, his eyes turning red. Do you really want to marry him? I moved my lips but didn't say a word. He was so anxious that he jumped around the room, even smashing a teacup. Su Qinglin was nearby, covering her mouth and snickering. He glared at her, but she laughed even harder. What are you laughing at? She laughed. You look like a dog protecting its pup. Our big sister is smart. The person she chooses surely won't be bad. It was freezing cold, and the snow fell again. I peered through the crack in the door. Chu Jing was still standing outside. Today he wore a dark cloak, his shoulders covered in snow, his face deathly pale. Qing Feng was beside him, holding an umbrella over him, but he pushed it away. Sister? I didn't pay any mind. I walked up to Chu Jing, grabbed his freezing hands, and stuffed the hand warmer from my arms into them. Come in. He was stunned for a moment, then his lips curled into a smile, and he obediently followed me inside. Song Yuzhu was standing in the courtyard. Seeing us enter, his face turned green with rage. Well then, Chu Jing, taking advantage of your good looks to fake illness and trick my sister. Sister has a soft heart. Chu Jing ignored him, just staring at me. Have you decided? I pursed my lips and said nothing. His gaze dimmed a little, but his pale lips still tilted up. It's fine. I'll wait until sister makes up her mind. I looked at the betrothal gifts all over the ground outside. Reds and greens occupying half the street. I was a bit speechless. Is this how you wait? I was afraid someone would snatch you first. His voice was very low. I investigated those men your brother picked. Every single one of them. They are all smooth talkers. He froze. But those dark purple eyes lit up bit by bit. His voice trembled slightly. Does that mean you forgive me? I turned my head away, not looking at him. Reluctantly, he reached out and pulled me tightly into his embrace. His hands were shaking, and his body was shaking too, but he held me so tightly, as if afraid I would run away. My face turned red. Burying my face in his chest, I said, even if we marry. I said slowly, I don't want to be locked in the house. I want to live my own life. I want to open a shop, and go out to work. You can't control me. He was stunned, and then he smiled, looking truly beautiful. Like the sun coming out after snow, like a river flowing beneath ice. He spoke, his voice raspy. And no more seeking death. Okay. No more drinking so much. Okay. No more. Anything is fine. He interrupted me, holding me even tighter. As long as sister is here, anything is fine. In the courtyard, Song Yuzhu was both angry and anxious. In a fit of rage, he kicked and broke a water jar. There was a loud bang, and water flowed all over the ground, soaking his boots completely. He stood there jumping up and down. Whether because he was angry or his feet were cold, I don't know. Su Qinglin was beside him, laughing so hard she couldn't stand up straight. All well, peace every year.